Speaking today will be Jackie Listau. As I mentioned, she's our head of product. So she lives and breathes our product and works directly with many small businesses on a regular basis. Previously, she's come from large organizations as well, so formerly from ANZ, but also the founder of the Australian Women's Security Network, which is a really fantastic organization working across Australia and helping women build their cybersecurity careers as well. So a real wealth of knowledge. We're really fortunate to have her as part of the team. So she'll be talking to us all about fake email scams and all the stuff that is quite scary and frightening and can be quite devastating to businesses. But over to you, Jackie.
Thanks, Adam. So today we're going to be talking about fake email scams. This is really a big concern at the moment. So there's, small businesses have lost $4.5 million to scams in the first half of just this year. And that's actually an increase of 1.4 million from the previous 6-month period. What's actually happened over the past 6 months, if you can think about it? COVID-19. And that has really affected a lot of these small businesses. So it's not just the effects on health and jobs, it's also a financial problem as well. And it's not just a loss of income, it's these businesses being tricked into giving up their hard-earned money. So I'm going to be covering in this half-an-hour session what is a scam and the different types that are out there. I'm also going to talk about how it works, so getting a little bit inside some of these cyber criminals' minds, and give you a few tips in terms of what you can do and where you can get help if something goes wrong and you are scammed. So in the good old days, scams or cons were about impersonating somebody. So if you think about it, it was a security guard. They were impersonating a security guard and robbing a bank or a casino. Nowadays, in this modern world where technology is everywhere, it's a lot easier to commit a scam or a cybercrime, and you don't even need to leave your house. Scams all that scams want is to get your money somehow and tricking you into giving it away. So there's a few different ways in which this gets carried out. One of them is phishing, which is it uses email. So what they're trying to do is to phish for your information or your credentials. They're trying to lure you or trick you into clicking on that email, clicking on that link and opening an attachment to install malware or getting you to download something. They're trying to get to your data, and sometimes it's also about getting software onto your computer so they can get to a higher target, to somebody higher up in the organization that you're in, or to try and get to a bigger database. A lot of the time they imitate big brands, and this year we've seen that there's been a lot of imitations of big brands like Google, Amazon, WhatsApp, Facebook, Microsoft, and Netflix. And what they do is they'll send an email that looks exactly the same as what you would get normally for your Netflix subscription, telling you that your subscription's about to expire. Please click on this link so you can re-register for that subscription. Also, for the Microsoft, it could be that they say there's a file that's waiting for you to open. Please click on this link to open it. So they're really using things that you're using today in order for you to click. The other one that they're doing at the moment that we've been seeing quite a lot of is they may look up what your website is and where your website is hosted. They can see when your domain is about to expire, and what they then do is to send you an email from that where your website is being registered, saying to you, look, your website is about to expire, please click on here to register it. So they're really doing a lot of research into what your business is in order to then really trick you. And a lot of you would have probably received some of these emails, because 90% of all attempted cyber attacks were due to phishing, which is a pretty large amount. So SMS scams is another one. You may have received some of these yourself as well. The most common ones that we see are from banks, the government, and your internet providers. So one thing that you might not realize is that it can look like that it's coming from those official sources. So you may receive a text message from your bank saying something official and genuine, and straight after it, it could be something that is fake. So what is recommended is whenever you receive a text message from anybody, is to actually then go to the actual source in order to get information, rather than clicking on that link on the SMS or the email. The other one is phone scams. So this is where somebody's pretending to be someone else, someone to get you to do something. A lot of people, when they get a phone call, sometimes they're a bit cautious about it. But if you get a phone call from your internet provider telling you that they need to quickly log on to your computer because there's been a virus, you might be taken unaware and provide those credentials. And this one's quite common, and it's called a remote access scam. So we're seeing a lot more in those types of things, especially with the whole working from home, where people are working at home and they rely on their internet at their homes, even for work purposes. So the other one is blackmail and ransom. So this one is about, so blackmail, you may have received an email, or the things that we've seen at the moment is that they're using information that they have obtained from previous data breaches. So for example, in 2012, LinkedIn had a data breach where usernames and passwords and email addresses were obtained. And they assumed, a lot of the cyber criminals assumed that a lot of people haven't changed their passwords, and they reuse those passwords across different platforms. So what they do is they take that email address and that password, they'll send you an email from another company website. So the one that we've seen is like school applications saying, "Hi, Jane, we know that your password is password 123 because they know that they assume that you've used that password and you haven't changed it since then. If you don't pay X amount of money for a ransom, then we will release some information that we have of you." And so a lot of people do get, if that password is the password that you do use and you reuse it across different platforms, a lot of people have been paying that money because they just don't want that information to be released. So it's really important to not reuse your passwords across different platforms. And it's a good idea to have a look to see whether or not your passwords have been caught up in some of these old data breaches, because they can come back to you. And you can look at that with a website called Have I Been Pwned? So we can give you some of that information after this session. So the other one is about ransom. So you would have heard this, I mean, ransomware has increased over the last few years, and it's costing Australians more than $241 million last year. We hear about it in the news all the time. Lime Beverages, Regus Aged Care, BlueScope, Garmin, My Budget, Services New South Wales, and Toll. And the numbers keep increasing in terms of those cases that we're seeing. We have another webinar that spoke about ransomware, so we can provide those details to anyone that wants to hear more about ransomware. The other one is fake email, fake websites and news. So the reason we've got this little puppy here is that during this COVID-19 period, we've seen there's been an increase in puppy scams, where Australians lost 300,000 in 3 months in puppy scams, where there's a lot of people that are lonely out there and they really want a puppy. So they say, okay, look, these puppies are for sale. When somebody then tries to purchase the puppy, they say, well, actually, we can't deliver the puppy because of COVID-19. So if you could then pay a certain amount of money to have it delivered to this account, then we will then send the puppy. And a lot of people, that the puppy doesn't exist, so they lose money to that. So they're really playing on people's emotions, and they're playing on the loneliness of people during this period of time to really trick people into doing things. But today I'm going to be talking more about one that is affecting a lot of small businesses, which is about fake email scams. This is about tricking somebody to do something or pay something. It's also known as invoice fraud. You would have heard it as business email compromise, BEC, CU fraud, and that's what I'm going to be talking about mostly in this session. So they're trying to extort money from you, and it's really hurting a lot of small businesses. And often these small businesses don't want to talk about it because they feel really embarrassed by it. So there's a number of different types of fake email scams out there that are affecting lots of businesses out there, large and small. And they can be through things like modifying payments instructions. So this one is about impersonating a particular company, or it could be that they research and hack into a partnering organization. And what they then do is they modify payment instructions. So they will have a look to see, okay, what kind of payments systems you use, how you invoice people. And they will then intercept an invoice or modify that invoice, or send an email to you saying, hey, our organization has changed payment details. Please pay into this other account now. And sometimes they will even give a courtesy call to say, hey, if you're quite a large organization, you don't talk to that person quite often. They'll say, hey, we've changed our bank account details, or our phone number has changed. And they will then please expect an email that's going to come with new payment instructions. And a lot of people, unfortunately, are falling for this type of scam because it's expected. So sometimes it's really difficult to tell. So the second thing is about preying on investment emergers. So they're having a look at different, they're looking at the news and they're having a look at, okay, who's going to be merging or receiving a big, large fund shortly. So we've had a case where we know of a case in industry where they knew that a particular merge was going to happen. They intercepted their email, and when the email instructions came through for paying this large amount of money, they modified that payment, and so it went to a fraudulent bank account. The other thing is that they can send an email saying that something is very urgent to send a money transfer. So this one is also known as CEO fraud. So they will have a look who the CEO or a financial officer will be in a particular organization, and they will send an email impersonating or pretending to be from that person to the accounting department or somebody who does the finances, and say, look, hey, I'm on a plane at the moment. I really urgently need you to transfer this money to this bank account. I'm not available at the moment, so please don't try to contact me by phone. And people don't want to question, these people as of authority, so they will then send that email through. The other thing that we're seeing and have seen is salary updates. So what they'll do is they'll go in, if they are able to, they'll go into your accounting system or HR system and update payment details, or they will have a look at the process in which you update staff details for payments, and they will then submit and say that the bank account details for that employee has changed and to please update those payment instructions. So getting inside the mind of a cyber criminal, how do these happen? I mean, it's a very lucrative business, and they have, unfortunately, professional teams dedicated into researching. So they'll have a look at particular targets and the latest news for potential victims. It's very targeted, a lot of this, and they will build or buy lists from the dark web on lists and businesses to target. Once they've chosen a target, they will kind of look at ways in which they can approach them. So it could be a simple email saying, hey, I just really want to connect with you, or trying to establish some sort of relationship with that person beforehand and start interacting with them. And they're very patient, so they will wait for the perfect time to strike. So it could be during a time when they know that you know, you're very busy, or it could be that you're away, for example, depending on the kind of scam that they would like to fulfill. So then what they will do is they will then either, hack into a particular account of a partnering organization or somebody that you interact with very frequently, and send an email. They might also impersonate somebody and use an account very similar. So if your company name is Shell Bright, it might have Shell Bright but spelt a little bit differently, so BRITE instead of IGHT, for example. So once they've convinced you that you're talking to the person that they're impersonating, they will then send the email or the impersonating, so the updated invoice details to get your hard-earned cash. And more often than not, somebody that's been targeted may not realize this until a few weeks later, because that's when they do their reconciliation of the accounts. And it's not until somebody then says, hey, where's this particular payment, that they realize it. And unfortunately, the chances of recovering these funds are quite slim. So the longer periods of time in between is getting, the larger it is, the harder it is to recover that money, and especially if it's been transferred internationally. And we see a lot of this in the news more and more. As I said before, small businesses, we don't see so much in the news, unfortunately, just because a lot of them don't want to report it because they're embarrassed about that money being taken from them when they feel that they should have known otherwise, even though, these are professional cyber criminals. So this is an example of one of the fake email messages. Here you will see that there's that sense of urgency that I talked about before, really urging you to respond as soon as possible. And sometimes, as I mentioned before, they will have in the email indicating that they're unavailable, so don't try to call them. Or otherwise, they'll have a phone number on there, but it's the cyber criminals themselves. So when you receive these types of emails, it's really important to verify, if it seems really suspicious, that not to call the number that's on the email itself, but a number that you know, and to make sure that you verify that genuinely was a request from that person, no matter where they are in the hierarchy of the organization. So why are these scams so successful? Because they're very hard to detect. If you think about a lot of email filtering systems that are in place, a lot of the time it's words in an email. They are really targeting the vulnerabilities of people and not technology itself. The fake emails usually look really close to and identical to an email that you may normally send. So as I mentioned, they've got professional marketing departments, so they copy emails pretty much similar to what a brand has. And it's it's getting more and more difficult to detect it. They're even using like HTTPS, TLS in websites, etc., because that's how, previously security awareness specialists, we used to say, just make sure that it's, it's got the lock and etc. So they're starting to know, okay, these are the advice that people are being given, so let's go the extra step as well. So we always need to be on our guard and really pay attention to, if somebody's asking something that's out of that doesn't seem usual, then to really verify it. The other reason why it is successful is that a lot of the time, sometimes the fraudsters will follow up if it's a really large amount and they really want to trick a particular organization. They're very gutsy, I guess, and they'll call you, which makes it a lot more legit. It feels like it's a lot more legitimate. But again, if you get that kind of phone call, just call back that company just to double check it. As I mentioned, they're very patient, so they're waiting for the right time to strike. And sometimes these scams can go for weeks undetected and leaving plenty of time for that money to disappear. So we've talked a lot about, the reasons why it's important to know about these fake email scams. And the reason why we really wanted to do this presentation is because a lot of the time it's about awareness that these are happening. So it's I recommend to, sign up to the notifications from Scamwatch, who talk about a lot of these different scams. They give a lot of examples of it. A lot of the big corporates also have on their website, the example scams that are happening. And obviously we do a module also in Cinch about how to try to find out these types of scams. But our biggest message is, verify anything that's suspicious. So emails, calls, websites, anything that comes through any messaging channel, especially if they're asking for information that they don't normally. Make sure that if you have any staff in your small business, that you should educate them on this and how to spot a dodgy message and email. And there's lots of little tools out there that can help you, like phishing tests, that can help you with educating your staff on that. In particular, anyone that's in the accounting department or somebody who's in higher management, like the CFO, for example, in your small business, somebody that is front-facing or in marketing who may receive quite a lot of emails from external, it's really highly recommended to educate them. The other thing is to, implement processes to verify high-risk transactions. So any transactions in which you are going to transfer a large sum of money, it's always good, and it's the first time, just double check, that payment detail is going to the right place. If your bank allows you to have two-factor authentication or a code or something, highly recommend for you to implement that as well. And where possible, do that two levels of authorization for any big transactions as well. So if you have a large amount of money going, have another person that's going to approve it, and make sure that they check that those bank details are going to the right place. The other thing is, hang on, is to protect your systems itself. So you want to make sure that the software that you're using on your laptop or your computer is up to date. The latest security updates are there to protect your computers and your devices, but this also includes your network devices at home. Everyone's working from home at the moment, and often those routers or modems are very out of date, so it's good to check that to make sure that they are up to date. Also, that goes to anything that IoT, like your Internet of Things devices, everything is up to date. Check that your antivirus and firewalls are in place, and protect your email accounts. So this is the crown jewels of everything. Make sure that you've got a strong password on your email accounts. Make sure that you have implemented two-factor authentication. You don't want people getting into your email for to get into your email to get information about what's actually in your email as well. So making sure that you don't have it's a good idea to clear out your mailbox every so often as well. So if somebody was able to get into your email for some way or another, at least they don't know what the transactions that you're corresponding with lots of different people. So it's a good idea to archive emails occasionally. And other technical controls which at a high level is that you can implement are things like implementing SPF, DKIM, DMARC. They're all lots of technical terms. That's another session to go through. We can give you some more information about that in our platform if you would like to know more about that information. Also, implementing mail filtering is important as well. So what that will do is any emails that come through, it will filter through to see whether there's any dodgy attachments or links. And as I mentioned before, it's harder to find text-based type updates. So if somebody's saying, please pay to this particular account, but softwares, those email filtering are getting a little bit smarter nowadays. So there are some tools out there that can do that as well. The other thing that's really useful is to turn on monitoring for any email forwarding. So anytime that somebody tries to set up a rule to forward emails to another account, because this is how a lot of them work, then it will send you a notification to let you know that that's happening. So the other thing is digital profile. So your digital profile is what is out there. Cyber criminals, they research. They're very good researchers. They will have a look at, your LinkedIn profile, your Facebook, who you're connected to, who your business communicates with. And so it's really important to be mindful about what you share, especially those in have financial positions. Or if you are in those types of roles where you have to be outward facing, I know that those cases exist. Just be mindful about emails that come through to you. If your email address is out there or your phone number is out there, just be aware that this type of thing can happen. So that was, half an hour of what we just talked a little bit about, this fake email scams. We have just recently launched this cyber bootcamp, and it provides expert information and recommendations from myself, Adam, and the team. Each of the tailored advice is tailored for each business and provides detailed guidance across a lot of the things that we spoke about today, and a lot more, obviously. And it's free for a limited time, so would highly advise you to visit the website and take a look.
Thanks, Jackie. That was great. I think haven't any questions pop up yet, but if anyone does have any questions they'd like to ask, please feel free again to throw them into the chat. One question I have got, knowing your background from banking, put you on the spot here. I've always been curious, in the event that someone does lose money to one of these sort of scams and whatnot, what sort of recourse is there when working with their bank, and how does that kind of relationship function or work?
Very good question. So the first thing that is highly important to do if you suspect that you have been a victim of a scam is to contact your bank. The faster that you can contact your bank, the faster they can then, in the background, try to recuperate those funds. So they will they'll look at the trail, the breadcrumbs of where that money has gone to. They have relationships with other banks, and they will then try to see whether or not they can stop those funds from going through to the next chain of payments. So it's really important to contact your bank immediately. Sometimes they will then recommend for you to contact the police, depending on what that is. But in the first instance, it's extremely important to contact your bank. Excellent.
Well, we haven't got any other questions pop up yet, but I'll take that as you just covered everything. And so a comprehensive session, no questions to be asked, or we've just raised so many other questions for people to follow up on and kind of digest, which is fantastic. Just a reminder for everyone, as Jackie mentioned, so you can create an account on our platform and get access to some of the sort of recommendations and start to understand this a bit better for your own business. And you will see there, we've also released just in the last week and made available our bootcamp program for free. So you can sign up and get started on these and start to tackle some of these, like this concern or any of the others on the list, or any others that might pop up as well. And through that, you can engage and reach out to Jackie, myself, or anyone else in the team to sort of help you through that. That concludes the session, unless I'll give everyone one last chance to ask a question. Otherwise, we'll leave it there. But yeah, if anything else, you can hit us up on the website. You can contact us with hello@cinch.com.au. Jackie will be in contact in the next day or so with a link to this session, the replay for the session, and anything else that we've mentioned that we'll share through that session as well. And just a reminder to, follow us on various social media platforms or Eventbrite for future webinars as they come up as well. Other than that, have a fantastic day and stay safe, everyone.